Okay. Okay, so everybody should see my screen now. So I will begin. Thank you everyone for coming today for my presentation for Edmonton Housing Month. And thank you for Homeward Trust for this opportunity to talk a bit about our programming. So I will first begin with a land acknowledgement. Oh, sorry. Oh, shoot. Sorry, everyone. I gotta get out of here. Okay, let's try that again. We recognize we are gathered in collaboration and with joint purpose on Treaty 6 territory. This territory is the traditional home and gathering place for diverse Indigenous peoples, the Nehiwa, Nitsitsapi, Dene, Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, Nakota Iska, Inuit, and Métis, among many others, care for this land since time and immemorial and continue to steward it today. As visitors in this territory, we honor the importance of the treaty and our responsibility to these communities. Only in partnership can we create the changes necessary to end homelessness. It is vital we meaningfully engage and partner with Indigenous people and communities in this work while recognizing and addressing the conditions brought forth by colonialism. Displacement from traditional homelands, systemic racism, residential schools, the 60 Scoop, and the ongoing overrepresentation of Indigenous people in child welfare, correctional systems, and homelessness are responsibilities we all share. Sorry, I'm just admitting a few more people. Okay. Okay, well, thank you again for coming to this Lunch and Learn presentation that I'll be hosting. My name is Hannah Mohamed. I am the program coordinator and caseworker with the LOFT at EnCompass Community Safety Agency. Today's topic will be preparing youth for independence through short-term supportive housing. So I first wanted to begin before I jump into the loft, and I did want to pay attention to our housing programs that are offered at EnCompass. EnCompass supports Edmonton youth through multiple housing programs. These housing programs are intentionally designed to facilitate transition and meet youth at whichever stage they're at. Our youth housing programs recognize that everyone's journey towards independence will be different. So an interesting structure to our housing programs is that it's shaped similar to a continuum. So we have the programs that I've listed above. We have Youth Housing First, Loft, Donnelly House, and Nova, which are all open and offered to Edmonton youth. The interesting part of our programs is that they all address different needs and they have different time frames and different supports offered to really meet youth where they're at. So I'll go into more specifically what the programming looks like. So for those that are not aware, we have NOVA, works with youth ages 16 to 24, specifically seeking to transition from houselessness to independent living. I will also say that all the programs are voluntary as well and all gender. Nova's has two different program models. They have their rest and their stay program. They are a 17-bed program. And so they have, or sorry, I should say 20 beds. So they have 17 beds within their stay program and 3 within their rest. So Nova is interesting because it's divided into two different programs. The rest side is more specific for youth that are needing their basic needs met, and it's more of a shelter structure. So youth are able to use the rest beds up to 7 times per month, whereas their stay program is an 18-month housing program, and it's there for youth that are wanting to begin that journey towards independence, but they may need a little bit more time to establish those basic living skills and maybe get more into a routine and stabilize before beginning their journey towards independent housing. Nova is also a self-referral program. Then we have Donnelly House, which works with individuals ages 16 plus. So they do have supports offered for youth, but they also work with adults as well. And so they work to as well seek transition from houselessness to independent living. They are an 8-bed program with a 3-month timeline. And at Donnelly House, they are the referrals are specifically from Health Services and Recovery Alberta professionals. And they work towards supporting individuals in areas of recovery and reintegration. Then we have our Youth Housing First program. And so that is a program for youth that are wanting to move on to that next stage of living independently and finding their own apartment or independent living. So in this program, youth get matched with a housing worker that will be working with them towards finding apartments, viewing apartments, applying for apartments, and everything in between with setting up their utilities for their new apartment. And Youth Housing First is also interesting because the housing workers will follow with their clients for 9 months after they've moved out, and so they have that continuous support even as they are living on their own. So I will get more into the LOFT in a moment here, but I did want to touch on each of the programs and what they are about because it really points to how our housing support is shaped as a continuum. We have NOVA that is more suited for youth that are maybe needing a little bit more time to establish themselves and find stability. We have Donnelly House that is there for people that need to address maybe some mental health and it's a very shorter term program to help them get back on their feet. Then we have Youth Housing First that is there for youth that are ready and wanting to find their own apartment, and they just need that additional support to find and get connected with it. I'd like to bring an example just to kind of explain how this continuum has worked in the past for our previous clients. We had a resident that came to the LOFT, but they were first, before that, the LOFT, they went to our NOVA program, and they were actually at the rest side. So they needed a place to stay, and they were using their temporary beds at NOVA. And the interesting part is that staff saw this resident and they saw that he was maybe not exactly a fit for NOVA, and he was actually maybe better fit for LOFT because of that readiness for change. And he was able to establish basic living skills, and he was definitely just a little bit closer to wanting to live on his own. And so it's very interesting because when we have residents or just when we have youth that come to EnCompass, when they come to one program, we have a connection through all of our programs. And so if they come to a program and maybe it's not the best fit for them, they will be our connections will make it work so that they get into the right place for them. And along with that, they can also begin at one program and transition to another. So I wanted to touch on that before we jump into the LOFT. So this is the LOFT. We are a program for youth age 16 to 24 years old, interested and capable of living independently. We are a short-term supportive housing program as we are 6 months. We are voluntary, we are sober living, and our program is self-referral. But I will also say that we have had professionals refer youth to our program. And the main thing is that as long as youth are involved in the referral and that they understand that it is a voluntary program, and so they're coming because they want to be in the program. We are also staffed 24/7, so we are able to provide that hands-on support within our program. And what the LOFT does is we support youth to develop the necessary skills to successfully live independently. We help youth become empowered and accountable, and we work alongside youth to identify their goals and connect with meaningful daily activities. So I wanted to begin with more of a focus on how our program is structured. So we are very intentional with our programming in wanting to separate it into three phases, and I'll get into that a bit more with an example, but I did want to explain why we have the phases. So structuring the LOFT program within phases provides clear direction, a natural progression of responsibility, and the opportunity to gauge a resident's abilities and interests in the program. So for clear direction, staff work alongside the residents through their time at the loft, clearly explaining the program expectations and how the expectations will change as they progress in the program. Our natural progression, residents will take on responsibilities one at a time, which will help them sustain independence and create confidence within themselves. And then with gauging resident abilities, the phases provide opportunity for staff and residents to really evaluate if the loft programming is right for them. Um, as responsibilities and expectations increase, some residents realize they are not ready to take on the program expectations. The phases provide reassurance that regardless if the residents complete the LOFT program or choose to leave after month one, they will be exiting our program with additional resources that will reduce their risk of reentering houselessness. I want to dive deeper into this because this is a big part of our program. We recognize that the youth that are coming into our program, while we do have our structure so that they can stay within that 6 months and go through all three phases, we realize that not every youth is going to be the same. We've had youth come to our program that come in and they only stay for our first phase, our first 3 months. And that helps them get their basic needs met, their doctor, ID, mental health support, maybe getting income support. And if they choose to leave after that first phase, then they are leaving our program with more than what they had before. We also have, just with the nature of the work we do, we have had points where we have youth coming to our program and they believe that they can do the programming. And as time goes on, they realize that they maybe just aren't at that stage of readiness yet. And so whether we have to close their bed or they choose to leave the program, they are still going to be leaving our program with more than what they had. Within phase two, we really work on empowerment and responsibility. And so preparing for taking on tasks on their own, whether that be calling their doctor, making sure they're getting to their jobs on time, that sort of thing. So these, where our phase one really focuses on basic needs, our phase two really focuses on their daily routines and establishing stability. And then if they choose to leave phase two, they're still leaving with that new sense of ownership. And then phase three, if they choose to move through our entire program, you will see through an example I will provide that phase three does, it provides them that setting up stage where they're able to get into their own apartment and really get everything set up for independent living. Okay. So I wanted to provide an example to really understand how the loft works with youth to help with independent housing. So I created a simulated case study that we will be following. One thing I did want to point out too is that so we're going to be following Casey's journey at the loft, and while all of Casey is a simulated, a fake scenario, the things that are within her story are things that we see within our residents every day, where she comes from, the barriers she faces, the programming that she engages in, all of those things are real. So I'll begin with Casey. She, her pronouns. She is 18 years old, and she was referred to the loft by her school counselor after disclosing to them that she was experiencing family violence at home and was recently kicked out. Casey is working with her counselor to apply for school funding, but because of her difficult home life, her attendance has not been high enough to qualify. She is committed to her sobriety, but she has had recent slip-ups while at her parents' because she has used alcohol as an escape. Casey is upgrading her courses and interested in applying to post-secondary in a year or two. But for now, she wants to focus on gaining independent skills so she is able to find an apartment and create a life for herself. After submitting her application, the LOFT casework team reaches out to schedule an interview with Casey at EnCompass's downtown office. She was nervous but motivated, and her counselor attended as support. Casey is accepted into the LOFT, and we will begin with her as she works through the 3 phases of the program, addressing basic needs, finding stability, and maintaining independence. Phase 1, addressing basic needs. So this is our first 2 months at the LOFT. And this is where we really set the stage so that we can set them up for success. So while Casey is at the LOFT within her first and second month, she tours the LOFT and she completes her initial paperwork. She meets her roommates and attends our weekly resident dinner. We hold a dinner for our residents every Wednesday, and that really helps Casey get a chance to meet the roommates and also get to form those pro-social relationships. She also creates monthly goal plans with staff to keep her on track and have a clear direction on exactly what we're working on month by month. Casey grocery shops with staff, and staff are able to actually go to the grocery store with her, budget how much the groceries will cost, make a grocery list, and really understand how to grocery shop. Casey also opens savings accounts as a budgeting tool for her weekly budget check-ins. So at the LOFT, we do really focus on budgeting because we understand that that is going to be one of the biggest things to overcome to live independently. So what we do with our residents, and with Casey in this case, is we go to the bank. We open free savings accounts for them, and we use those free savings accounts and label them so that they know exactly where their money is going to. If they have bills, they have one savings account's labels for bills. And that way, it really breaks down and simplifies budgeting and makes it something that is not as overwhelming as it would likely seem to someone that doesn't know how to budget. Another thing that we do with Casey in this first and second month is we replace her lost Alberta ID, because that will also be an important thing as she wants to apply for her school funding. We schedule a meet and greet with the new family doctor as she does not have one yet. We work with her to develop a night routine so she is able to get to school on time in the mornings to be able to qualify for school funding. We help Casey learn how to do her weekly chore. We work with her hands-on to learn how to clean the bathroom, living room, kitchen. We connect her with Access 24/7, and we submit a psychologist and psychiatrist referral. And lastly, we help Casey to get an eye exam appointment, and we visit lens crafters to get a new pair of glasses at no cost for Casey. And so this is our phase 1. And as I mentioned pretty in depth, there is quite a bit of stuff we tackle within the first and second month. And in Casey's case, she does move on to phase 2. But when we do have a resident that, for whatever case, does not move on to phase 2, they do leave our program with all of these resources that will help them in just giving them one step towards independent housing. So this next step is all about finding stability. And so phase 2 is month 3 and 4. So in this phase, Casey is now receiving her foundational learning benefit, and she's now attending school, and her attendance has improved, all because of the things that we have had really focused on in our phase 1. She's completing her weekly budget check-ins with staff, and she's already been able to save $500 from her foundational learning. And Casey is paying and budgeting all of her expenses, including groceries, her phone bill, and her art card. After receiving staff support twice, she is now comfortable calling her mental health therapist to schedule her appointments all on her own. Casey voices interest in finding a part-time job, and staff work with her to create a resume, a cover letter, and to job search online. Casey does have a slip up and comes home intoxicated after going out with her friends, but staff ensure she is safe in the moment, complete observation checks throughout the night, and her caseworker is able to follow up in the morning and create a safety plan with Casey. Staff work with Casey to submit a referral for EnCompass's Youth Housing First program. So phase two is really about following through with all the work that was done in phase one. And as you can see with Casey, she is finally able to really start establishing a routine for herself. And it shows that once you have housing, you really can start moving forward and creating stability for yourself. I also wanted to point to the slip up that happened in phase two. This is something that we do see with some of our residents. They have previous coping skills that maybe were unhealthy, and they were maybe preventing them from accessing or moving forward into their independence. And we look at these slip ups as a learning opportunity. And we come to our residents and we let them know that we're a safe place. And we want them to know that we are willing and we want to help them work through it. And in Casey's case, she is. She wants to work through the slip up, and she actually doesn't have a slip up after this. We do have moments with our residents where if they continue to have these slip ups and we realize that maybe the sober living and the sobriety piece is not something that they're able to meet at that point. That is at that point where we might look at referring them to other programs, potentially closing their bed because they might not be a fit for the program. And at the end of phase two, we look at submitting a referral for a Youth Housing First program to really start laying the ground for Casey's transition out of our program. Phase three, maintaining independence. So this is the transition phase. So within month 5 and 6, Casey gets her first part-time job and she starts to work on the weekends. This is in addition to her schooling that she's doing. But now that she has been able to slowly build on her responsibilities, and she first started with making sure that she's attending school full-time, and then she was able to add on to a part-time job. It really helped ensure that she could maintain stability for herself by adding one thing at a time. She completes her intake with Youth Housing First and begins apartment searching and attending viewings with her worker. After receiving staff support twice, she is now comfortable calling. Oh, so sorry, that is a typo there, but it does point to those kind of things does happen. And even in phase three, we might still be working on those things, but by phase three, she would be likely able to call her mental health therapist on her own, and she is scheduling appointments on her own. Casey finds a safe and affordable apartment. She signs the lease, sets up Wi-Fi and electricity with the help of her housing worker. Her housing worker coordinates with the LOFT caseworkers to determine a move-out date. With her additional income and consistent budgeting with staff, Casey has been able to save $3,500 by her transition date. And Casey moves into her apartment but visits the following week for the Loft Weekly Resident Dinner, and she continues to attend the weekly dinners several times a month. So there's a few things I want to point out in here. One is the savings. So the way that we budget with our residents is we really try to focus on their long-term savings as something that we aim to not touch as they're here and they're at the loft. And we want to frame the money that they put towards their long-term savings as preparing them for paying for rent. And with that case, most of our residents do leave our program with a significant amount in that savings account. And we have heard from other residents that have transitioned from a program that they continue using our budgeting savings accounts that we created for them, and they continue to be able to save up even past their time at the loft. I also wanted to point out here that with even when we have residents that leave the loft and they move out, they are still welcome to come back for our dinners, to access our gym on site, to even just come visit or use our Xbox. And so that's something that we really try to maintain with all of our residents as they transition out, and knowing that even though they might have their housing worker and other supports in the community, they do still have the loft here and the 24/7 support we offer, and they know that they can always reach out to us. And of course, when someone is done phase 3, they are transitioning into their own place. And that kind of leads us to the ending of the presentation. I wanted to finish off with just an acknowledgement of the LOFT's community impact. Um, one really one really impactful statistic is that the LOFT contributed to EnCompass's work in providing housing to over 100 youth within this past year. Um, and then in 2024, I just listed a few of our statistics here from our resident surveys and our database surveys, but we have 100% of LOFT residents obtaining ID, bank account, increased awareness of housing options, uh, who were prescribed medication have an increased understanding of the benefits and purpose, an increased awareness of how to manage risks associated with lifestyle choices, increased confidence in completing daily living skills, increased connection awareness to professional and natural supports, and 100% felt supported and heard. And lastly, we have some comments here. The program made me more independent and helped my confidence. And the loft showed me the ability to live independently. Okay, so that sums up the loft and the programming and the support we offer, and also an overview of the other amazing supports that EnCompass offers. So I did provide some information here on this slide, my personal email for at the Loft. So if you ever have any questions about the Loft, you can of course reach out to me. We also have our other main email for the Loft, which is right there. And so for any referrals that you want to do in the future, you can email those applications to this email directly. And then lastly, I added our EnCompass website. And so that is, of course, a good resource for just learning more about our housing programs. Okay, so I will open it up now. I'm not sure how much time I took in that presentation, but I would love to open it up now for any kind of questions or even comments. Maybe what I'll do is I'll stop sharing here so I can see everyone. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Allison.
If one of the young people loses their phone or ID, are they encouraged to do it on their own, or can someone help them if they have a struggle that way?
That's a great question. So that is definitely something we see at the Loft, whether they're in phase 2, 1, or 3. So if they have lost their ID, we are able to go with them, get a new ID. We have funding accessible, so we can help them if they have no income to replace their ID. And we can do that any phase that they're in. And the thing that maybe I'll just I want to stress also in our phases is that even though as our phases progress, we are maybe we're putting them more in the driver's seat at every phase. That doesn't mean that they're losing the support from staff. So like I mentioned with Casey, slip-ups happen. And so whether it be losing their ARC card, their ID, even losing their job, whether that happens at phase 1, 2, 3, they will still have staff support and we're going to be working with them hands-on to work through it. Thanks, Allison.
Well, thank you.
I think I saw a question in the chat about um, where this will be saved on YouTube. I'm I know it will be saved on YouTube, and so I will check in with Homeward Trust on exactly where, but I'm sure that that will also be maybe emailed out. But um, any other questions? And thank you for everyone for attending the session today. I will also say that the email that I provided, which will also be in the slides that will be released to everyone, and maybe I'll even put my email in the chat. You can always email me, and if you're interested in ever doing a physical tour at the loft, we are always open to that. And if you have any specific questions about the loft, you can follow up with me. Okay, and I just added my email there. And it looks like the slides will be on the Housing Month website at housingmonth.ca, just in the chat. Okay, any last questions? Okay, well, thank you all for attending. I really appreciate you taking the time and learning more about our program. And I'd love to connect in the future if you have any other questions. So hope you all have a great rest of your Friday.